Booksy, welcome back to my channel. Today is Friday, May 17th. I'm here to share my Friday reads. I'm going to tell you about some of the books that I read this week, which I read more books than I can tell you about. Why? I'm judging a round of the BookTube prize, and I don't want to tell you about the books that I'm reading for that yet. My video where I discuss all the books, that's going to be coming next Friday. So instead of a Friday reads next week, I will post my video discussing the 6 books that I was reading to judge this round of the BookTube prize. So because of that, I'm keeping those books a secret until then. So forgive me for not giving you a complete Friday Reads video, but I will tell you about 3 books that I finished since my last Friday Reads. I'm also in the middle of the Bowder Books Readathon, so you're going to hear a little bit about these books again when I post my Bowder Books vlog, which is incomplete because yesterday I left my phone at home and I didn't vlog, even though I was supposed to be vlogging all day. And then today, because I'd fallen out of practice, even though I had my phone, I also didn't vlog most of the day. So my Bowder Books Readathon vlog is gonna be choppy at best, but we'll see. But I'm gonna tell you about the books, so it doesn't matter. The first book that I finished since my last Friday Reads video is Brief Chronicle of Another Stupid Heartbreak by Adi Al-Said. This copy is an ARC. It doesn't have the author's picture, but he's a young man and I really admire the way he writes. So this one is about a 18-year-old girl. She's a writer. She's a journalist, and she writes this regular column for an online magazine where she talks about her dating and love events at 18 years old. In any case, she and her boyfriend have just broken up because they've just finished high school. They're about to spend the summer before they go for college, and he's convinced that they should break up because, you know, they're going to separate anyway. Neither of them wants to have a long distance relationship. Why not break up now at the beginning of the summer? And then she meets a couple who, even though they're faced with the same dilemma, they've decided not to break up. And they're going to spend maybe the last summer that they have together, they're going to spend it enjoying their relationship. And so she has a pitch for her article. And so she decides to kind of live vicariously through this couple so she can write about them. But what follows next as she develops a relationship with this boy and girl, their lives start to intersect. I really like the fact that while this is a young adult novel and it had all the makings for a love triangle, I do not like books with love triangles. And I feel like the author did a really good job of presenting the setup for a huge dramatic blow up and then having this situation be curtailed in as beautiful and decent a resolution as you could possibly want. The other thing I really liked about this book is set in New York City, and everything about where the characters go felt like a tour of the greatest city on earth. And the fact that these characters are bookish, they go to like the Strand bookstore and they spend time with one of the workers there, and you know, the kind of life that you want to have if you're bookish. So I loved a lot of the things about this book. It is YA. YA is not my usual jam, but I really enjoyed this book. One critique that I could have made, the main character Lou, she is Vietnamese. Her parents are Vietnamese immigrants, at least her mother is. I don't remember her father's background, but I feel like he didn't use all the potential that her background could have presented. Like, we didn't get anything about the Vietnamese language. There were a few mentions of Vietnamese food, but they were sparing. So I'm not saying that this should have been a tour of Vietnam because, again, it's a tour of New York City. But if you really want to critique this book, there are things that you could probably find to say the author didn't use to the fullest, but I really like the book. I read this one in a day. It's about 360 pages, but it went really fast. And again, I liked a lot of the elements of this book, so I'd recommend it if you like a lot of those things as well. The next book that I finished was Girls Burn Brighter by Shoba Reo, and I started reading this last week, so I mentioned it in my Friday Reads video last week, but I read it and finished it. I think I finished it on Monday, and I love this book. I gave this a 5-star rating. It's set in India. There is a later part of the story that is set in the United States, but most of this is set in India. The elements, the setup for the story takes place in India, and we're following two girls who, they're poor. Their families are really poor. They're born into the weaver caste. Sorry for the background noise. There's, summer is coming and everyone's doing yard work. So yeah, we just have to keep on going. So yeah, we have these two girls and they're teenagers when we meet them, but in India, being a teenage girl means that it's time for you to leave your parents' home and go get married. And because of the system of arranged marriages and the payment of a dowry, these girls, their parents want to marry them off because it's the thing to do. But in order for them to get married, they have to be able to save up a dowry. And while they are trying to come up with the money for a dowry, they're also trying to find men who want to marry these women, because the men have all the power. And so a man of marriageable age, he can choose which woman he wants to marry based on who has the better potential for providing him with a dowry. And because these girls are not, they're described as being unattractive and they're poor, the men that they seem to be able to get, they're also like unwanted. I don't want to spoil the book for you. I want everybody to read this book. And the main exploration of this book is about the value of women, what women are worth to themselves versus what they're worth to other people. And while we have a system of patriarchy that tries to teach these girls that they have no value, that they're worthless, that their only value is in bearing sons, finding a husband and bearing him sons to continue his lineage, that while these girls, and not just these two girls, but who they represent, an entire generation that they represent, while their value has been diminished, we also see other people using them, and the empires that are built through these supposedly valueless women. And I thought the author did a really good job of exploring that idea and proving it to us in lots of ways. Now, this book has a really sad middle. I mean, you think it starts off sad, but it gets even worse in the middle when we see what happens to these two young women. But the resolution, this book explores love in a really profound way, the kind of love that is separate and apart from any kind of physical or romantic or sexual attraction, just the bond that can exist between two people who are willing to put another person's interest ahead of their own, because that is the true definition of love. And I thought the author did a really good job of exploring that idea and proving the love between these two young women to us. Girls Burn Brighter, I gave this 5 stars, an unequivocal 5 stars. Yes, there are things that you could criticize about the book, and I was reading reviews on Goodreads where people were saying that the end is kind of open and you're not really sure whether it's going to be a sad or happy ending. Based on everything else that you had read before, you know that the author has told you what the end is. But love this book. If you haven't read it yet, definitely check it out. Girls Burn Brighter by Shoba Rayo. The next book that I finished that I could tell you about is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Brathwaite. And I no longer have the copy because it was due back at the library. I read it in a day so I could return to the library without paying a fine, because these fines are only 25 cents a day, but they add up. Well, My Sister the Serial Killer, I really enjoyed as well. I thought the author did a really good job of exploring what happens with women, exploring generational curses and family dynamics, and how the things that happen in a family affect children as they grow up and as they become adults themselves and become owners of their own lives and owners of their own destiny. What are some of the choices that they make, and how are some of those choices based on the experiences that they had in their families as they were growing up? So in the story, we have two sisters. One's older, one's younger. They're not twins, of course. One's older, one's younger. And one of the sisters, the younger sister, has this terrible habit of killing her boyfriends. So, and she's involved in a romantic relationship after some time, the boyfriend ends up dead, and the sister always comes to help her clean up. And I can't give too much else about the story away because that's pretty much all that's in the synopsis, and that's all that I knew going in. And I felt like I was able to appreciate the story more not knowing too much about the book. One issue that I had with the novel is that it is really short. It felt like a novella as opposed to a novel. It felt like a short story as opposed to a novel, because even the traditional chapter format is not followed. We get snippets, little entries that explain little pieces of their lives and some of the circumstances that create the monster that this sister is. One of the points that I felt like the author wanted the reader to conclude was that this sister was damaged and she was making other men pay for sins that had been visited upon her by her family members. I'm a little uncomfortable with that idea. I'm a little distressed by that because people get abused all the time, but it doesn't mean that you have to become a serial killer. It doesn't mean that you have to be violent towards other people. And I didn't really feel like what this character was doing was justified. Also, because of the brevity of the novel, I felt like we didn't really get enough time with the characters, and it felt like their actions, we didn't get enough of the backstory. We didn't get enough of development of their characters, development of where they were coming from and why they were the way they are. Like, we got a fair bit of telling this is a situation, but it felt like we weren't able to see and witness these characters become those people, and so we weren't able to justify some of their choices. So I liked a lot of things about the novel. I liked the strength of the bond between these two sisters, that even though one of the sisters didn't necessarily agree and affirm what her younger sister was doing, that she always made herself available, even to her own detriment. She never left her sister. She never let her sister down. She never left her alone, because somehow they carried this burden together. And I mean, that's to be admired, I suppose. I'm still sorting out my feelings about that one. So those are the 3 books that I finished this week that I can tell you about. There are 2 other books. You'll hear about them next week. I'm currently reading The Story of Edgar Sawtelle by David Wroblewski. I told you about that last week. I am in the middle of part 3. I'm doing a buddy read of that one with Patrice Jones. Hi, Patrice. And I'm supposed to do a check-in with her today, and I'm not ready. So after this video, I'm going to go back to reading so I can check in with her later. I also just started this arc, How We Disappeared by Jin Lee, and I need to review this on my blog next week. This is a book that's set in Singapore. The author is Asian, so it fits in with my hashtag Asian Readathon. This is the first book that I'm reading this month that is written by an Asian author, so I need to step up my game on that. But as soon as I've finished, I have one more book that I need to finish to judge the BookTube prize, and then I can focus on my Asian Readathon books. And this is probably going to be the first of the Asian authors and books set in Asia that I read. But you'll hear more about those in my next Friday reads, which won't be for 2 weeks, because next week I'm going to be talking about my BookTube judging prize. So thanks for watching this video. Let me know in the comments down below how your reading week went. If you read as much as I did, if you read more, I hope you did. I hope you had a great reading week. And if you didn't read a lot, hopefully it's because you've been doing some fun things. Tell me about that in the comments as well. I'd love to hear from you. Let's talk down there. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Subscribe if you want to see more. And we'll talk in the comments. Until next time, happy reading. Bye.